Hello, this is Pick, and well, I said I wasn't gonna do this, but plans changed. I'm probably gonna wait for 1.21 to get back to pack development full time, but for right now, yeah, I guess here we are playing NeoTech in a survival playthrough. I learned a lot in my first playthrough that I did on my own, and now I have a lot more information that will help me play the game faster. In addition to the faster playthrough to my enhanced knowledge of the mod pack, there's also the matter of cheating. Remember in Sky's Expert? Remember when I said I was gonna cheat a lot, then I barely cheated at all? Yeah, now that I have less time, and I also did just play through the entire mod pack and don't want to go through the grinding parts again, yeah, I'm going to be cheating. Well, I'm going to be actually cheating. But the way I'm going to do it is, and I talked to Sarith, the developer at FTB. Well, I guess I'm also a developer at FTB, but that's beside the point. He said the way he does testing is he just determines how much resource he's going to get from a particular amount of mining, and then he takes that as time and says, let's say if he gets 10 iron in a minute, he just says, okay, I will spawn in 80 iron and say I went mining for 8 minutes. That's kind of the general point, so you get a sum average. I'm still going to be upgrading my equipment and stuff, getting better equipment that would do this manual mining faster, but at the same time, I will be cutting corners in many parts. I'm not going to be grinding for building materials. I really shouldn't be building it all if I want to save time, but as we all know with me, I find lawn bases to be a sin against humanity, and thus I refuse to build a full-on lawn base. But, yeah, that's the gist of this playthrough. I'm still going to be informative and such, and, obviously I will be doing my best to be informative like I did with Sky's Expert, but yeah, that's where we are, that's what's gonna happen, and, yeah, enjoy my series. Oh, another thing I should mention is that in regards to what mods and stuff I use, I said it in my NeoTech preview video, but I kind of completely skipped out on things like EMC in that playthrough. In this one, I'm going to be using all of the broken stuff because, it helps you play the game faster. And it's probably what most of you will want to be using as well. Now, you might have noticed the lack of a minimap on my screen. This is because I have to unlock it via a quest. You pretty much just have to do some basic things to get there, but you will need to find some sugar, so that's the thing to do. But if you want to work on your chunk claiming early, you can't do that either. I guess they disabled that since beta. Okay, well, that's fine, You're not going to be doing much before you set up camp anyway. So, I'm going to go find some sugar cane, I suppose. And once I do that, I will start recording again, once I see something interesting. Okay, well, I found a village. Just to let you know that I found it, really. I believe most of the good loot that will be kind of broken has been stamped out, but there's some pretty good stuff here still, though. I mean, I'm not going to turn much of this down. In any case, though, of course, I will be trying to craft things when I have them available. I'm not going to just abuse the fact that I have loot, because obviously you guys don't. And like I said with Sky's Expert, this is a guide, so I'm going to make some sacrifices for my luck by, making sure that you guys can follow along. One thing I would recommend keeping track of is chickens. I can't make a chicken catcher yet, but I will be able to eventually, and you're going to want to find a log chicken for later, as well as a sand chicken, and you'll be able to breed these chickens to make better chickens. And of course you'll need one for a quest. Okay, I found some. Now, to do this quest, I need 3 sugarcane. And, oh, well, there's some more over there. So I guess that solves that problem. But, yeah, once I put this sugarcane together, and I make some paper out of it, I can have access to the map in the corner of the screen. I don't know if I agree with this design decision, because it basically just makes you do a little bit of exploring you were going to do anyway, but oh well, I suppose. Well, oh, I need to make a map, of course. Okay, from that village loot, I'm actually almost ready to do that, but if nothing else, I should probably set up a little base camp here to get started. I'll get some iron and then I'll come back. This took way too long. Oh dear. Yeah. I really shouldn't even be caving right now, but... Now, if you were paying attention, you might have noticed that this quest gives you a compass, meaning that I did not have to go through all the effort of doing all of that iron mining, but because I am, of course, smart, the iron mining was done to have iron for later, because we will need it. So, let's make that map. And so, make the map, and there we have it. We now have our mini-map. Lovely, am I right? We love mini-maps. Now, I don't want to waste iron on a bucket just yet, so if I want to move some water around, it's a little bit tricky to move them in these bowls of water, but I can at least slowly get some water over to the base. It's going to be a bit of a journey, but that's okay. I do need some string to make an engineer's hammer, so to deal with that, of course, I can plant some industrial hemp from immersive engineering. I also got some bones from some skeletons, so I can just speed this up and grow them faster so I can get that string right away. Well, you know, just grow them hemps, I don't know. And now, if I use all this iron and such, I can get an engineer's hammer. And what this allows me to get is a diamond hammer. This is a really good reward. You're going to want to hold on to it. It can mine obsidian, which, remember that for later. And of course, it's just a casual 3x3 mining implement. So, yeah, now's where things kind of take off. I mean, you know, we're still in the slightly slow beginner stage of things, but in general, we're starting to speed things up. We can get more stuff done. So, what are we going to use this for anyway? Well, this raw iron can be used to make more hammers. And what we're after is, in fact, a forge hammer. Now, in order to get iron from this, we need to make a forge hammer. And in order to do that, we need iron. So, to get iron, we're going to need some tiny iron dust, and that's gotten by smashing this iron with the engineer's hammer. It's a little pricey, but I believe the ratio I wanted of this is going to be, as you can see here, we have iron dust. And, yeah, once again, our goal is the forge hammer, so that we can make more of this iron dust for far cheaper than it would be otherwise. So, in order to do this, we need 10 iron ingots. It's a little pricey, but thankfully the little helps we had along the way will slightly cheapen things up. Actually, I think this is exactly enough, and then, you know. Oh, we also have tiny coal. You know, I'm sure Dyer is happy about that. We have this nice tiny coal. And, yeah, we can smelt up our iron. Alright, that iron is all ready to go. We can make a forge hammer. So, Forge hammer, what does that do? Well, it lets us put our iron into here and say some type of hammer. You generally don't want to hold on. Okay, so there's occasionally a bug or two that might make it a little annoying to get things done. You see, sometimes you have to reload the scripts because the scripts don't load properly, and you might end up with a missing recipe. Yeah, I know, it's really annoying, and I hope it gets fixed soon, but for the time being, know that if you have a recipe issue, the most likely solution is to reload the scripts with the /reload command. So, yeah, keep that in mind. But now we can get iron at a higher rate, much more appreciative, and yeah, now we're kind of ready to get started with this real tech tree. Speaking of quest rewards I ignored, there's a vein mining axe. Probably would have been good to get this before. Oh well, here it is, vein mining. Helps cut trees down. Sometimes when tilling grass into farmland, you can get a worm. A worm is a little bonus for your crops. Plant one and it will automatically grow the plants around where the worm is placed, in a 3x3 square. Alright, so I went on a mining expedition. As you can see here, I got a few stacks of different things: copper, iron, a bit of lead, a bit of antimony. Those last two will only really be useful later. And some tin and a little bit of gold. I would recommend picking up a good amount of copper and iron to get you started, as well as maybe a stack of tin. Generally, you're going to want to use the forge hammer to make plates and such. You can do it without the forge hammer, but it's much more expensive. What I want to do now is locate a lush cave biome. This is going to give a large source of clay, and so I can use a nature's compass to find one. Now that I have easier access to iron, it's pretty easy to make a nature's compass. On the way to the lush cave biome, I found a bed full of clay. I might as well just make use of the clay that's here rather than go off and find a lush cave. If I really need a ton of clay later, I can always go back. Well, I hope you got a lot of clay, because now we need to make some kiln bricks made from clay and sandstone. It's not too expensive, but you're gonna want a number of bricks coming up, so get smelting now. Using the alloy kiln, we can now get bronze, and bronze opens up a lot of the main machines of this chapter. We can make a steam boiler, and that's basically the center of everything. So get a few stacks of bronze with all that copper, though you're going to want some pure copper as well. So, to make the bronze boiler, I'm going to need a whole bunch of bronze, as well as some fire clay bricks. To deal with the bronze, of course, you're going to want to use the forge hammer to get more efficiency out of your plate making. Now, use that diamond hammer. It has Unbreaking 3 for a reason. Trust me when I say this, you're going to want a ton of bricks. Smelt them up, and then you can crush them into brick dust, but you're also going to want those bricks for other things like a coke oven. So, once I craft some of the finishing items, I can make a bronze boiler. This works as you would expect. You put water in and you put a fuel in, and it turns the water into steam once the temperature is high enough. Note that to put water in the boiler manually, you have to take a bucket and click it into the slot. Before we get to actually making a machine, we are also going to need some fluid pipes. Of course, you're going to have to do some microcrafting to get it. You'll need some rotors as well as some curved plates, but it's not too bad as long as you have a lot of durability on your hammer, and if you play your cards right, you should have enough hammer durability to last you until you're stopping using the hammer for almost everything. It might be of interest to you to track down villagers and get an industrialist villager to skip some of the early game microcrafting. But you know what? I think I might be able to work without one. Of course, you know, it's easy though. It's probably a good idea to remember where a beehive is located. You'll need some honeycombs for things. Just something to keep in mind. You probably won't need too many beehives. I should probably also give a quick crash course on how to use EMI. So like JEI, EMI is an inventory viewing mod, and you can look at the buttons on the right of the recipe to do various things. The heart lets you favorite a recipe. That'll be important for the next thing, which is the recipe tree underneath the heart. The plus is just your regular shift-click fill-in, but the recipe tree lets you view the components required to craft a given item. This can be very helpful, as those hearts are going to make it have a default recipe that it'll use when calculating recipe costs in the tree. I have some left over from my previous playthrough, so you'll have to start from scratch in regards to favoriting recipes, but it's very helpful for determining what you'll need for larger crafts. You can also click the magnifying glass on the recipe tree screen to change it to crafting mode, and this will have a sort of countdown on the left side of the screen to see what items you need to acquire to process whatever you're trying to make. The first thing I'd like to make out of machines is a macerator, and in order to make one, you need obsidian. To get obsidian, we can simply use the diamond hammer quest reward. Otherwise, you might have to find some in loot. It could be a little complicated. I think there is also a recipe to get it from exploding skystone, so if you find an applied energy 6 meteor, that's another way of getting some obsidian. Otherwise, just come to lava level and mine some with your hammer. Because we're going to need to hook all of these machines up with steam, we of course are going to use our fluid pipes to transfer it. To put a pipe on a machine, simply shift click the side of that machine, and then shift click that same side again with a fluid pipe in your hand, and that will make a connection between the fluid pipe and the machine. You can also use the wrench by clicking on the appropriate side of the pipe with the bronze wrench to force a connection, and then you need to make sure that the flow direction is happening in the correct way. Alright, first machine is finally ready to go. Now I no longer need to process my raw ores on the forge hammer, and I can just crush all of it in the macerator. I will probably eventually end up making several macerators, but because we're still in the bronze phase, I guess I should just make the one for the time being, maybe two if I feel like it. Otherwise, it's still pretty simple to hook it up to some steam, put some raw ores in, and it should get going. The macerator isn't the only machine we are making today though. I'll also want a compressor, which will be our plate maker. If you are familiar with GregTech, this is essentially a combination of the metal bender and the compressor, and anything that's like similar to that. Now it's time to make something really special, a steam mining drill. So why would you upgrade from this? Well, the first benefit is pretty apparent. It doesn't take any regular durability, it instead runs on fuel, and I guess water, but that's literally free. Another thing to note is that it mines in a 3x3 area, much like our hammer, but the third benefit is that it comes with Silk Touch pre-packaged into it. So while it's not an enchanted speed efficiency hammer, it's still going to last you a very long time, and it's going to mine your ores with Silk Touch. If you haven't noticed, the redstone, diamond, emerald, etc. all mine with Silk Touch already, but ores like iron or gold will be very nice for mining it with Silk Touch, because that lets you get insane yields from a single ore vein. To fill it, simply follow the instructions. If you hold shift over it, it tells you. Right click it on water to fill it with water. Hold some fuel over it and right click it to fill it with that fuel, and then go have fun mining. I went ahead and mined up 22 copper ore and put them in the macerator, and we're going to see how much copper dust we get out of it. Also, it might be worth saying now that if you right click on a steam machine with gunpowder, it will make the machine run twice as quickly for 2 minutes. This also means that it will be using 2 times the steam, of course, but because we're overproducing, that's not really an issue right now. That's mainly a way to help you in the early game to overcome slow steam processing. The other way to speed up steam processing is to upgrade to steel, but of course we don't have any steel yet, so that's not quite an option at the current time. The final result here is that those 22 copper ore blocks turned into over 4 stacks of copper dust. If that isn't efficient, I don't know what is. While I would love to use the modern industrialization barrels here for storage of bulk stuff, it's much easier to just use limited barrels from sophisticated storage. They're way cheaper too. Maybe in the later game I'll be able to fit in some of those higher tier barrels, but early on, just use the wooden ones. Of course, filling the boiler with water buckets manually is painful. In order to circumvent this, we can make a bronze water pump. Simply place it between two water source blocks, and give it some steam for power, and it will start pumping water. You'll need to use a fluid pipe to get the water out of the pump and into the boiler, but it's automated. And to get the steam in, you might have to route a separate thing of pipes, but I think it'll be much better when I fix this in a bit and use a different color of pipe to separate them. Alright, so in order to save pipes, I can just dye some of them blue. I tend to like color coding my fluid pipes to whatever is going through them. It both looks better and makes it easy to tell what's going where. But to give a quick crash course on the pipes from modern industrialization, you can fit up to 3 different pipes in a single block space, and that means I can have both water and steam going through that same single block space, between the boiler and the water pump. If you want full information on how these pipes work, I already have a video about this very topic, so go look at that. So I made a bronze furnace, and I've hooked it up to the macerator, so now I have a sort of automatic ore processing. To shift right click on the side of a machine with a wrench will let you manipulate where the auto output side is. It doesn't have the robustness of some other mods, but you can simply set the side that will auto output items. And if you shift right click on the green rectangle, it will allow you to move the square from the side that it's on to the side that it's touching. Just watch the video. Now, of course, to use this boiler, we're going to need a way to automatically fuel it, right? Well, that's the next thing I'd like to work on. I'm going to make a tree farm using Steve's carts. That's a mod you probably haven't heard of in a while. It's been since, what, 1.7 since that mod has been around? And we're about to make use of it. I went ahead and crafted the cheap components that we're going to need to make our first automatic woodcutting cart. If you put the hull into the cart assembler, you can see that there are slots for various things to put on your cart. It's modular, and of course you're going to need to make sure that things don't overlap on the sides they're on. So, put in the coal engine, the side chests, optionally the seat. You might want to use a compact solar engine or something instead, but for this most basic one we're just going to stick with the Quest recommended version, and of course the tool is going to be the woodcutter that you also get from the quest book. Now we have to wait, because you gotta put fuel in the cart assembler and it will take like 11 minutes in this case for it to craft the cart. The more complex the cart, the longer it's going to take, unfortunately, but for the most basic simple things this will have to do. While I wait for that to craft though, let's set up the actual farm itself. I went ahead and made a cargo manager and some advanced detector rails. I would recommend placing an advanced detector rail on 2 different sides of the cargo manager, so build the cargo manager on a corner of your setup, and once you do that, you can see on the inside of the GUI that it has a bunch of manipulatable things. So one thing you can do is you can split its internal inventory into 4 separate inventories, which might be useful for filtering things. And you can also click the other buttons. One of them makes it so that the cart turns around after it touches the detector rail. One of the other ones changes which colors it can interact with. But you can also click on the arrows to change the direction to or from the cart that the cargo manager takes or sends to. And you can also click on the colored boxes to change the components of the cart that it interacts with. In one case, you might want to use the out of the cargo and then put in to the engine. This means that what you can do is automatically put in and take out of the cart without having to worry about manually refilling it with charcoal or something. Another useful thing to make is an external distributor. This makes it much simpler to do the logistics as to which sides of the cart you're interacting with. This is effectively a relay for your cargo manager, and it means you can put pipes on the top of it to have that color-sided management without having to worry about the internal sides. Of course, we're going to need to set up some item pipes as well. I'm using the modern industrialization ones. Get used to seeing them. I like them a lot. You can shift right click twice on a side like the fluid pipes to attach it to the inventory, and then it starts on a blank whitelist, which means it won't send any items into that inventory. So you have to either set the whitelist yourself. In this case, I'll just send charcoal to the cart, and of course, when I extract, I need a blank blacklist so that it takes everything out of the cart that's in the cargo slots of the minecart. You could put an internal smelter into the cart if you wanted. I think that because there are so many better options for furnaces, it's much better to just have an external furnace. Obviously, the regular external furnace is crap. You know, it's a vanilla furnace, but we'll be able to upgrade it later. Now that the cart is finished crafting, we can place it down, put some saplings in the woodcutter slots, and put some charcoal in the engine slot, and it'll start going around planting saplings in a specified pattern. Make sure that it is planting them on the correct blocks. Sometimes people have a habit of putting the wrong alternating pattern into their Steve's Cart setups, and it just doesn't have anywhere to plant. On 1.3 and below, there was a bug where if you filled the saw with the repair material, in this case it would be low covalence dust as it's a basic cutter, it would stop working, but I believe that bug has been fixed as of now. If not, it's still the intention that you can fill it with a stack of covalence dust and it will automatically repair itself when it has a durability drop. It's also important to set the proper priorities onto the different components of your auto smelting setup, as you want to make sure that the furnace always has charcoal in it, and that the minecart also always has charcoal in it before sending to whatever buffer inventory you're going to be using. Remember that the buffer is the final place you're going to be sending things. Again, I have a whole video on how pipes work for this mod. You do need to set up your external distributor. Simply, if you're going to use it the way I'm using it, just say drag the red square to the red square and the blue one to the blue one. And there you go, it's basically already set up. It's going to be interacting with that corresponding segment inside the cargo manager. That's the separate inventory that it's going to be pulling from. The blue face will be pulling from the blue inventory, if that makes sense. There are more complicated ways to set that up, but simplicity works better here, of course. So, I guess that's about it for today. We made an automated tree farm, all the way from the start of the mod pack. Thank you for watching. I guess I've gotten myself into making another full guide playthrough for a Feed the Beast mod pack. Here we go again. Anyway, thanks for watching. This has been Pick. I'm glad to have seen you, and I hope to see you again.